Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Friday. Time to dump all that news before the weekend. So, speaking of which, let's go ahead and do that now. Today on Before Coffee. Historic result. European Parliament and member states reach agreement on the key biodiversity bill.
And we look at the fraudsters who stole COVID relief money.
Diet rich in fish and antioxidants could improve lung disease patients' quality of life.
And it's Marine Corps birthday, so we look at the very first United States Marine.
Robert De Niro, actor's company must pay former assistant $1.2 million in gender discrimination lawsuit.
And it's also the Marine Corps birthday, so we're going to look at more stories than that stretch from the halls of Montezuma, shores of Tripoli, on today, November 10th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
Okay,
All right.
First news story. We've been talking about the biodiversity bill for a long time, I think. Maybe like 3 months or something. They've been writing this bill in the EU, and they've finally finished and agreed on it. This is from Euronews. The key piece of legislation on nature restoration and biodiversity had stumbled over issues of agriculture. The nature restoration law will require member states to implement measures to restore nature on at least 20% of the Union's land and marine areas by 2030, and all ecosystems in need of restoration by 2050. To reach these targets, EU countries must restore at least 30% of habitat types covered by the new law to a good condition by 2030, increasing to 60% by 2040 and 90% by 2050, according to a statement from the European Parliament. Pascal Canfin, head of the Parliament's Environmental Committee, said on Twitter that we can be proud of this historic result, which defines rules that are ambitious and practical for everyone. Teresa Ribera Rodriguez, Minister of the Ecological Transition in Spain, which currently holds the EU Council's rotating presidency, also described herself as proud of the law, the first of its kind. The European Commission said in a statement that it welcomes the agreement, arguing that once its adoption has been finalized, it will be a key contribution to reaching climate neutrality by 2050. And that will increase Europe's preparedness and resilience to the effects of climate change. Now they better start writing those immigration bills, because they're about to get a bunch of people immigrating. If Europe is the only people who are actually trying to make a goal towards being neutral, a lot of people are gonna have to come here because it's gonna be the only place you can live. Everywhere else is gonna be food deserts and stuff.
America.
Critics, however, pointed a finger at the elements that had been watered down with the World Wind Fund for Nature, writing that it's disappointing to see that many exemptions are included, and the excessive flexibility regarding obligations for member states. Ioannis Agapakis, a nature conservation lawyer at Plant Earth, also cautiously welcomed the text. We finally have a much-needed law that, in theory, would force the EU to take concrete action to restore its ailing nature. However, negotiators have hollowed out the law to the point that it risks being toothless, in practice and prone to abuse. The numerous exemptions and lack of legal safeguards have set a very frightening precedent for EU lawmaking, rather than cementing the EU as the forefront of biodiversity conservation, he added. The European Commission had proposed the text in 2022, but had in recent months become a target of a fierce campaign, particularly by the European People's Party, the Parliament's largest formation, to torpedo it. The EPP said the proposed law would threaten the traditional livelihoods of European farmers and fishers, disrupt long-established supply chains, decrease food production, push prices up for consumers, and even wipe out urban areas to make way for green spaces. You can have people living in green spaces, that's fine. It's called living in the woods. The right-wing group claimed credit for changes to the bill was adopted in trilogy on Thursday, with MEP Christian Schneider from Germany writing in a statement, We welcome the fact that the final text on this law has little to do with the original proposal from the Commission. The regulation now needs to be formally adopted by the Parliament and the member states and will enter into force 20 days after it is published in the official journal of the EU. The 27 member states will then have 2 years to submit their first nature restoration plan outlining the restoration needs and measures they plan to roll out to address them as a clear timeline for their implementation. But its final adoption by the Parliament could prove difficult, with NGOs raising the prospect of a repeat of the summer when the text was first voted down by the Environment Committee with 44 votes in favor and 44 votes against. A simple majority of 1 vote is needed for text to move forward in the Commission on the committee level due to EPP opposition. Chiara Martinelli, director of the Climate Action Network CAN Europe, described the upcoming parliamentary committee vote expected later this month as the biggest hurdle to come for the adoption of the law. We call on MEPs to vote for the approval of the agreement so member states can immediately reverse the degradation trend in Europe's ecosystem and jointly tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis, she adds. So, they finally agreed, but they haven't voted on it yet, so it still needs to be voted in Parliament to be an actual law that people will have to follow, but not really have to follow, because as somebody who studied the European Parliament, how it's more of like they give the EU member states suggestions on what they should be doing. They can't really enforce their laws. They can't really do much to enforce it, other than
use leverage
politically, right? Well, you didn't vote for you're not following the European nature law, so we're not going to help you with homeless people. That's what they can do. They can have leverage, and you have to follow this, or we're not going to do this. But other than that, it's really just a suggestion. But for the most part, Europe does kind of have like a bullying culture when it comes to politics, and they try to all be in the same, under peer pressure, right? Do the same stuff. But that doesn't always work, as we can see with Italy, who's incredibly anti-immigrant. Your story.
just a give and take of politics. Give here, take there, give here, take there, right? Just compromise. Oh, politics, right? Anyway, in Broadster news, this is from Associated Press. Richard Lardner. Yankeetown, Florida. Freshwater spring bubbles amid the mangroves, cabbage palms, and red cedars of Sweetheart Island, a 2-acre uninhabited patch of paradise about a mile off the coast of this little Gulf Coast town. Pelicans dive bomb nearby the cool waters of Florida's Cochoche Bay. Wow. And the open view westward holds the promise of dazzling sunsets. It may have seemed like an ideal getaway for Florida businessman Patrick Parker Walsh. Instead, he's serving 5.5 years in a federal prison for stealing nearly $8 million in federal COVID-19 federal relief funds that he used in part to buy Sweetheart Island. Yeah, borrowed money from the government to buy his own little island. While Walsh's private island ranks among the more unusual purchases by pandemic fraudsters, this crime was not unique. He was one of thousands of thieves who perpetrated the greatest grift in U.S. history. They potentially plundered more than $280 billion of federal COVID-19 aid. Another $123 billion was wasted or misspent. Oh, by the way, the government can't forgive your student loans. That'll be too hard. But they can just give money away to rich people. That's what's sickening about this. The loss represents close to 10% of the $4.3 trillion the U.S. government has disbursed to mitigate the economic devastation brought by COVID-19 pandemic, according to the analysis by the Associated Press. I'm still waiting for him to get Tom Brady to give his $1 million back. An AP review of hundreds of pandemic fraud cases presents a picture of thieves and scam artists who spent lavishly on houses, luxury watches, and diamond jewelry, Lamborghinis, and other expensive cars. The stolen aid Also paid for long nights at strip clubs, gambling sprees in Las Vegas, and bucket list vacations. Their crimes are relatively simple. The government's goal is to get cash into the hands of struggling people and businesses with minimal hassle, particularly during the early stages of the COVID-19 crisis. Safeguards to weed out the swindlers were dropped. That's because Trump ran it. As Wallace's case and thousands of others have shown, stealing the money was easy as lying on the application. Oh yeah. Thieves came from all walks of life and all corners of the globe. There was a Tennessee rapper who bragged about the ease of stealing more than $700,000 in pandemic unemployment insurance on YouTube. Brilliant. A former pizzeria owner and host of a cryptocurrency-themed radio show bought an alpaca farm in Vermont with pilfered aid. And an ex-Nigerian government official, no, not a Nigerian prince's son, who grabbed about $500,000 in COVID relief benefits, was wearing $10,000 watch and $35,000 gold chain when he was arrested. Oh, just take these people and execute them, please. I'm sorry. Is that just too much? I mean, nearly 3,200 defendants have been charged with COVID relief fraud, according to the U.S. Justice Department. About $1.4 billion in stolen pandemic aid has been seized. Well, there you go. There's a start. You've got 1% of the stolen money back. Wow. Investigators won't catch every crook. Well, isn't that comforting? The scale and scope of the fraud are too large. Pandemic cases often depend on digital evidence, which is perishable, and the financial trail go cold over time, said Bob Westbrooks, former executive director of Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. The uncomfortable truth is the federal criminal justice system is simply not equipped to fully address the unprecedented volume of pandemic relief fraud cases, large and small, involving thousands upon thousands of domestic and foreign actors. Top Justice Department officials are undeterred by the enormity of the task. They've created a special strike forces to hunt down COVID-19 aid thieves and vow not to give it the chase. We'll stay for as long as it takes, U.S. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco says in August. Constantinitos Zarkadas, a New York doctor deeply in debt, joined the rogues gallery of COVID-19 fraudsters by falsifying at least 11 separate applications for pandemic aid that netted him almost $3.8 million, according to prosecutors. He bought Rolex and Cartier watches valued at $140,000 for himself and family members, and made a hefty down payment on a yacht, according to court records. Zarkadas used about $3 million to pay off part of an earlier civil judgment against him for breaching real estate lease. His most brazen move was to send $80,000 of looted cash back to the government to settle a federal lawsuit alleging he violated the Controlled Substance Act by dispensing more than 20,000 doses of weight loss drug without keeping accurate records, prosecutors said. The state of New York revoked Zarkadas' medical license shortly after he was sentenced for more than 4 years of prison for swiping the pandemic aid. The stolen funds financed high-rolling lifestyle of Lee E. Price III, a Houston resident with prior felony convictions for forgery and robbery. He swindled $1.7 million by submitting bogus aid applications on behalf of businesses that existed on paper, according to court records. So Lee E. Price III is garbage. Price wasted little time blowing $14,000 on a Rolex, more than $233 on a fresh white Lamborghini Urus, a luxury SUV that could go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. He also spent, why do you need your SUV to go 60 in 3 seconds? He also spent thousands of dollars at the Casanova Houston strip club. Price was sentenced to more than 9 years in prison. Enjoy showing your Rolex to your cellmate. Oh wait, they took it back. Hana Odesimi of Georgia also created a fake company that he claimed made $250,000 a year and had 10 employees. A few weeks after Odesimi applied for the pandemic aid, the government rushed him $85,000 to keep his non-existent business afloat. Odesimi spent nearly $58,000 on a 1999 Charizard Pokemon card. depicts a gold dragon-like creature, jaws wide open, poised to attack. Well, money well spent on a card. While not as valuable as rare baseball cards, a mid-collection Mickey Mantle card sold for $12 million last year. Pokemon merchandise can command big money as collectors have driven up prices. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so there's a list of fraudsters. We can just name them by name. If you want, no, we just pretty much named all the ones they want to name. That's it, though. Bunch of fraudsters getting caught. We'll never get to the bottom of this. Even they're talking about hundreds of billions, and they've recorded it. They've collected a little over $1 billion so far. So it makes me sick.
Probably even goes deeper than they've discovered, for sure.
Makes me sick. Every time I got to pay off a student loan, makes me sick. Makes me sick. Every time. Oh, let me pay off this bank for the student loan. It's just interest, but whatever, you know. We hate the way rich people get everything they want and don't go to jail all the time.
Okay.
Like me. This was only rich people.
Yep.
These crimes. Yep.
Well, we may not be rich, but we can improve our lung quality and live through lung disease thanks to new study researchers have discovered. This is from Lauren Chadwick on Euronews Next. Researchers analyzed different studies on which diet and vitamins could help reduce the symptoms of lung disease patients. Vitamins, antioxidants, and food rich in omega-3 fatty acids, such as fatty fish, may help people suffering from chronic lung conditions to reduce inflammation and breathe more easily, according to new analysis. Research from the Hungary Semmelweis University carried out 2 literature reviews of studies of thousands of patients in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, which is a chronic lung disease causing less air in the airways and breathing-related problems. They focused on studies carried out between 2018 and 2023 and published the findings in the journal Nutrients. The literature review from the Semmelweis researchers found that, in particular, proteins, omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids, and vegetables appear to benefit COPD patients. Changing the diet from Western type of Mediterranean type is needed, Dr. Janos Varga, associate professor at Semmelweis University Department of Pulmonology, told Euronews Next. He added that the Western diet is pro-inflammatory and the Mediterranean diet has anti-inflammatory effects. The Semmelweis researchers recommend that people reduce the consumption of red and processed meat, which contains high level of saturated fats. Varga recommended instead consuming fatty fish like salmon, herring, and mackerel twice a week. People suffering from COPD require more energy to breathe, so their muscles may need more calories than someone without COPD, according to the American Lung Association. Eating fewer carbohydrates and more fat may also help people breathe easier, as the body produces more carbon dioxide when it metabolizes carbs. Dr. Craig Hirsch, director of the COPD clinic in Brigham and Women's Hospital in the U.S., said that experts have known for a while that this kind of a healthy, balanced diet is beneficial for both the reduced risk of developing COPD and for the treatment of COPD patients. In people who have established COPD, especially as it gets more severe, one of the things that they're at risk for is losing weight, especially losing muscle mass, he added, saying it's about finding a balance to keep a healthy weight and not lose weight. When people are more severe, that's when we recommend more lean protein and making sure they're maintaining enough calories to maintain their weight and muscle mass, Hirsch added. Could vitamins help COPD patients? According to 2 literature reviews, daily consumption of vitamin C, omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D could help people with COPD. A diet rich in antioxidants can also help with inflammation, the Semmelweis research added. One study researchers cited found that taking 1 gram of black seed oil twice daily had positive effects on lung function and airway inflammation. Okay, so I have to go buy some black seed oil for my asthma, and then I will come back to you to confirm that. I mean, they've already confirmed it. They did a study. My own personal experiences doesn't confirm or deny it. A huge study where they actually, did the scientific method. Hirsch, who was also an associate professor at Harvard Medical School, said there are no current recommendations to provide vitamins to COPD patients beyond eating a balanced diet. If people aren't able to eat a balanced diet, often recommended older patients to take a multivitamin but not taking any specific vitamins or nutritional supplements beyond that, he told Euronews Next. There have been and are ongoing trials of different nutritional supplements in COPD and other respiratory diseases, but no real convincing result of that I have seen to date, he added. The American Lung Association recommends that COPD patients rest before eating, eat slowly, and sit upright and take a breath in between bites. They say that eating food early in the morning can help if people are too tired later. They add that those with COPD should also avoid foods that cause gas or bloating. COPD is the third leading cause of death worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. Tobacco smoking accounts for more than 70% of COPD cases in high-income countries and 34 to 40% of cases in low-middle income countries, with the most effective COPD treatment to be stop smoking. Household air pollution is also a risk factor, or in some countries, cooking with wood or coal indoors. Occupational exposure to dust can also be a high risk factor. Hirsch says the common symptoms doctors see day to day for COPD patients include shortness of breath, especially with activity, cough, and phlegm production. People can also get acute flare-ups, which we all call exacerbations. Where they're worse and require additional treatment and even hospitalization, the risks we see long-term are getting worse, shortness of breath, and symptoms of needing oxygen either all the time or to help with activity, he added. Semmelweis researchers say a healthy diet is best when accompanied by physical training and breathing techniques. These will not only lead to an increase in muscle mass and stamina, but also improve breathing mechanisms, as well as weaken respiratory muscles, becoming stronger, Farga added. Overall, breathing becomes easier. As somebody with asthma, which you could argue is a type of lung disease in a way, I've definitely seen an improvement in all this stuff by just breathing, taking time to breathe. I did some Qigong. Qigong is all about breathing out with your stomach, breathing in with your stomach. So all that stuff really does help, for me anyways, with a totally different problem. But start eating healthy, guys. Even if you don't have bad lungs, it's good for you to eat healthy. Your story.
I know somebody with COPD that didn't even quit smoking, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You want to die.
Well, the worst part is we used to have smokers on both sides of my house, right? The left and the right neighbor. And constantly would be like, can you please stop? You smoke into our window, into our house, right? Go across the street, go to the canal, just go for a walk and go smoking. Don't freaking smoke right outside my window so I can go into my house. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
You need to just constantly cook things with curry in them, just to drive them crazy. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as promised, we have stories, and I did look up a couple stories. We have stories from the halls of Montezuma and the shores of Triple E, by coincidence. A guy you worked for once had a stroke, Steve Wozniak. Had to check into the Mexico City hospital. This is from Trip Mickle from the New York Times. When Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, suffered a dizzy spell on Wednesday, he took a precautionary trip to the hospital and learned that he suffered a minor stroke. A day later, he said in an interview, the hospital released him and he was doing good. The health scare came during a trip to Mexico City, where Mr. Wozniak was slated to speak at a conference called the World Business Forum. The dizzy spell hit him as he was typing at his computer. He said the hospital did an MRI, he added, and determined that he had a small capillary leak as well as symptoms of vertigo. Mr. Wozniak flew home to Los Gatos, California on Thursday and was waiting for dinner, and he surged when he talked with the New York Times. I'm back home and feeling good. All right, so that's good news for that. And from the halls of Montezuma, we have news of Putin being all sneaky in Libya. This is from Bloomberg News. And no byline, I guess. They covered up with one of their ad banners. So that's what they get. I ain't gonna read their byline. Putin's move to secure Libya bases is new regional worry for U.S. Russia is moving to expand its military presence in eastern Libya, a plan that could lead to a naval base, giving it a significant foothold on Europe's southern doorstep. A defense accord is being hammered out between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Libya's eastern military commander Khalifa Haftar following their meeting in Moscow late September, according to people briefed on the matter, asked not to be identified. Don't identify me. Let's get more of the story if we can. And it's not going to load. Okay, so that's the brief on that story. The United States is going to try to keep Putin from getting a foothold and try to invade Europe from the south, potentially. Yes. And we're going to go on to our story about the Marine Corps birthday. This is from Marine Corps University website, usmcu.edu. The first Marine was named Major Samuel Nicholas, the first commandant of the Marine Corps. By tradition of the senior taking officer in the Continental Marines, was born in Philadelphia in 1744. He received as a captain the first commission issued in the Continental Naval Service 18 days after the Continental Congress resolved on 10 November 1775 that 2 battalions of Marines be raised, consisting of 1 colonel, 2 lieutenant colonels, 2 majors, and other officers, as usual in other regiments. That they consist of an equal number of privates with other battalions, that particular care be taken and no persons be appointed to offices or enlisted into said battalions, but such as are good seamen or so acquainted with maritime affairs as to be able to serve by sea when required, that they be enlisted and commissioned to serve for and during the present war with Great Britain and the colonies, unless dismissed by order of Congress, that they be distinguished by the names of the 1st and 2nd Battalion of Marines. Captain Nicholas no sooner received official confirmation of his appointment to office than he began recruiting for the Marines in Philadelphia. By January 1776, having recruited sufficient number of Marines to man the vessels that comprised the Continental Navy in the waters of Philadelphia, Captain Nicholas assumed command of the Marine detachment on board the Alfred. With Commodore Hopkins in command, that Alfred set sail from Philadelphia on the morning of 4 January 1776. The following month witnessed the baptismal fire of the Marines. Lord Dunmore, with the British force under his command, had collected a store of arms and provisions at New Providence in the Bahamas, and had done a great deal of injury along the colonial coast, particularly the shore of Virginia. Commodore Hopkins had been ordered to process to Avoca in the Bahamas, and from there to operate against the force of Lord Dunmore. Here the Commodore decided to make attack on New Providence, capture the enemy's stores, and cripple his supplies. Captain Nicholas was placed in command of the landing party, which consisted of about 250 Marines and sailors. The first landing party ever engaged by the Continental Marines was a complete success. On 6 April 1776, the Marines participated in the first naval battle between American squadron and the British when His Majesty's ship Glasgow blundered across the path of the squadron. On 25 June 76, Congress placed Captain Nicholas at the head of the Marines with the rank of Major. Accordingly, Commodore Hopkins was advised to send Major Nicholas to Philadelphia with dispatches for the Continental Congress. With notifications of his promotion, he was ordered to report to the Marine Committee. The committee detached him from Alfred and ordered him to remain in the city to discipline 4 companies of Marines and prepare them for service as Marine guards for the frigates of the stocks. Having recruited and thoroughly organized the 4 companies, he requested arms and equipment for them. In December 1776, he wrote Congress, "The enemy having overrun the Jerseys and our army being greatly reduced, I was ordered to march with 3 of the companies to be under the command of His Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief." This was the first example of a battalion of Marines about to serve as an actual fighting unit under the direct command of the Army authority. The Marines did not, however, engage in the attack at Trenton, which followed General George Washington's crossing the Delaware. They accomplished the most arduous task of ferrying the Continentals across the river. After the First Battle of Trenton, the battalion of Marines under the command of Major Nicholas participated in the Battle of the Detachment of Cornwallis's main army at Princeton. During the ensuing months, Major Nicholas battalions served both as infantry and artillery, participating in several skirmishes. Following the evacuation of Philadelphia by the British in June 1778, Marine barracks were reestablished and recruiting renewed. From then until the close of the war, Major Nicholas's duties in Philadelphia were somewhat similar to those of his later commandants. Moreover, he was actively in charge of recruiting and at times acted as muster master of the Navy. On November 20th, 1779, he wrote Congress requesting that he be put in charge of the Marine detachment on board the America, then in process of construction, but Congress was adamant at its intention that Major Nicholas remain in Philadelphia. After the disbandment of the Continental Marines and Navy following the Revolutionary War in 1783, Major Nicholas returned to civilian life. He died in Philadelphia in August 1790 and was buried there in the Society of Friends Cemetery. So, there's the story of the first United States Marine. Back to you.
Wow, what a life.
Oh yeah.
What a life.
He made it happen. Your story.
Back then when men did stuff. I don't know. For our culture segment, Robert De Niro's company was being sued for discrimination, gender-based discrimination. This is from Uranos with AP. The trial is finished, and they have been ordered to pay $1.2 million in gender discrimination lawsuit. The star, Robert De Niro, is not personally liable. A jury awarded more than $1.2 million, approximately 1.1 million euros, to Robert De Niro's former personal assistant, finding one of his companies responsible for subjecting her to toxic work environment. While the jury found De Niro was not personally liable for the abuse, it said his company, Canal Productions, engaged in gender discrimination and retaliation against former assistant Graham Chase Robinson and should make two payments of $632,142 to her, which is $1.2 million. De Niro, who spent 3 days at the 2-week trial, including 2 on the witness stand, had been ensnared in dueling lawsuits with Robinson since she quit in April 2019. He was not in the courtroom when that verdict was read aloud on Thursday, the 9th of November. Robinson, 41, smiled as the verdict was being delivered. After the jury left the room, she hugged her lawyers. Lawyers on both sides claimed victory. "We are thrilled with the verdict," Robinson's attorney Brent Hanafan said as he stood with his client outside the courthouse. "Couldn't be happier." Meanwhile, De Niro's attorney Richard Schoenstein called the verdict a great victory for Mr. De Niro. "He is absolved. He is not liable for anything that was charged against him. There's a modest award against the company, but they were looking for $12 million. The lawyer said De Niro's lawyers could try to reduce the award with post-verdict motions to the judge, but he wasn't sure there would be any. He said he didn't know if there would be an appeal. Robinson had testified that De Niro, 80, and his girlfriend Tiffany Chen teamed up against her to turn a job she once loved into a nightmare. De Niro and Chen each testified that Robinson became the problem when her aspirations to move beyond Canal Productions, the De Niro company that employed her, led her to make escalating demands to remain on the job. Emails in which Chen told De Niro that she thought Robinson was having imaginary intimacy with him and she was his wife were shown to jurors. Robinson testified that she never had romantic interest in De Niro. In 2 days on the witness stand, the actor told jurors that he boosted Robinson's salary from less than $100,000 a year to $300,000 a year and elevated her title to vice president of the production and finance at her request, even though her responsibilities remained largely the same. When she quit, De Niro said, Robinson stole about $85,000 in airline miles from him, betrayed his trust, and violated his unwritten rules to use common sense and always do the right thing. At times, De Niro acknowledged from the witness stand many of the claims Robinson made to support her $12 million gender discrimination and retaliation lawsuit, including that he may have told her that his personal trainer was paid more than her in part because he had a family to support. He admitted that he had berated her, though he disputed ever aiming a profanity her way, saying, "I was never abusive. Ever." He also denied ever yelling at her, saying every little thing she was trying to catch him with was nonsense and that, at most, he had raised his voice at her in her presence, but never with disrespect. Then he looked at her sitting between her lawyers in the well of the courtroom and shouted, "Shame on you, Chase Robinson." De Niro said Robinson was wrong to take 5 million air miles from his company's account, but he acknowledged that he had told her she could take 2 million miles and there was no strict rules. Robinson testifies that she quit her job during an emotional and mental breakdown that left her overwhelmed and feeling like she'd hit rock bottom. She said she had suffered from anxiety and depression since quitting and hadn't worked in 4 years despite applying for 638 jobs. "I don't have a social life," she said. "I'm so humiliated and embarrassed and feel so judged. I feel so damaged in a way. I lost my life, lost my career, lost my financial independence. I lost everything." De Niro's lawyers sued Robinson for breach of loyalty and fiduciary duty even before her lawsuit was filed against him in 2019. They sought $6 million damages, including a return of the 5 million airline miles. Jury flatly rejected the claims. Okay, interesting. So, I don't know what to take sides on this because whatever, it's been solved. There's no sides necessary, really. But very interesting kind of situation there. But since De Niro's not liable, he has nothing to do with it. He's wiped his hands clean of it. It was all his company.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
I guess on to this day in history, because that's the end of the article.
That's my De Niro. Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you talking to me? I'm the only one here. All right. And in this date history, we already covered the Marine Corps birthday, so we won't delve into that. But in the year 911, before it was a phone number, it was a year, Conrad I was elected German king of Forchheim after the death of Louis the Child, the last of the East Frankish Carolingians. In 1444, Turkish forces defeated the Hungarians in the Battle of Varna, securing Turkey's control over Constantinople, which is now called Istanbul, and assuring Ottoman conquest of the Balkans. In 1879, American poet Vachal Lindsley, who in an attempt to revive poetry as an oral art form for the common people, wrote and read to audience compositions with powerful rhythms that had an immediate appeal, was born. Like a poetry jam, in other words. The guy who invented the poetry jam was born in this day, 1879. In 1898, the multicultural fusionist city government of Wilmington, North Carolina, was violently overthrown as many of the 60 black Americans were killed in a premeditated murder spree, the culmination of an organized months-long statewide campaign by white supremacists. Well, there you go. Another thing in history that got flushed down the toilet that we never got to hear about. 1918, Józef Pilsudski, Polish revolutionary and first chief of state of the newly reconstituted Poland, arrived in Warsaw to declare Poland an independent state. In 1925, Welsh actor Richard Burton was born, best known for his performances of the highly intelligent, articulate manner, world-weary, cynical, and self-destructive. Okay, that's Richard Burton. There he is. And married Elizabeth Taylor, I think, 4 times. 1938, Turkish reformer Kemal Atatürk, founder and first president of the Republic of Turkey, died in Istanbul. In 1958, the Hope Diamond, one of the largest blue diamonds known, was donated to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., becoming one of its most popular attractions. You remember seeing that? We went to see it one time. It was in a big old display. You stood in line and just looked, oh, there's a diamond. And then you walk away. 1969, the American TV series Sesame Street debuted on national educational television, later called PBS. It features the puppet characters Elmo, Big Bird, and Cookie Monster. And don't forget Oscar the Grouch. And Kermit the Frog 1975, the American firefighter Edmund Fitzgerald sank in a storm in Lake Superior, killing all 29 aboard. Its mysterious demise inspired a Gordon Lightfoot song that helped make it the most famous shipwreck in the Great Lakes. So this day in 1975, wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. We ought to play out that song. I'm going to play out for that. Anyway, 1982, Soviet statesman and Communist Party leader Leonid Brezhnev died in Moscow after residing as the leader of the Soviet Union for more than 18 years. 1990, the American comedy Home Alone, written by John Hughes and starring Macaulay Culkin and Joe Pesci, had its world premiere, a huge hit that spawned a number of sequels and became a TV staple during the Christmas holidays. 2001, after 15 years of negotiations, China's membership in the World Trade Organization was approved. And the following day, Taiwan's membership was approved. 2007, American novelist and journalist Norman Mailer died in New York. He was best known for using a form of journalism called new journalism that combines imaginative subjectivity of literature with the more objective qualities of journalism. 2015, German politician and publisher Helmut Schmidt died at the age of 96. He was the Chancellor of West Germany from 74 to 82 and one of the most respected and influential Western European leaders. In 2019, Bolivian labor leader Evo Morales, the first indigenous president of Bolivia, resigned under pressure after monitors claimed that the election for his fourth term in office had irregularities, and a claim later challenged. Our featured event on this day, November 10th in 1871, Dr. David Livingstone was found by Henry Stanley. And this day in 1871, according to this journal, explorer Henry Stanley greeted Dr. David Livingstone, fellow explorer, in search of the source of the Nile River with the famous words, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume?" And the featured biography is William Hogarth, English artist, who was born on November 10th, 1697 in London, England, and died October 26th, 1764. Other birthdays today. 1683, George II, King of Britain, was born. 1759, Friedrich Schiller, German writer, was born. 1879, Patrick Pearse, Irish poet and statesman. And in 1960, Neil Gaiman, British writer, was born. And it's National Day today. What is it? Besides being Veterans Day in the United States, because it's typically the 11th, but since it's a Saturday, they can't give the people the day off on Saturday, so they're giving people the day off today. And it's also the Marine Corps birthday. What else is it? It's National Forget-Me-Not Day. So when you're not forgetting your veterans, plant some flowers on their grave, I guess. National Vanilla Cupcake Day, also November 10th. It's World Net Cancer Day. World of Net Cancer. What's net cancer? And it's National Civic Pride Day also today. So have some civic pride, folks. Get out there and clean your streets up. I don't know. Pick up some trash. And World Net Cancer Day is...
Go pick up some trash. That sounds like a threat. Like, instead of saying fuck you, go pick up some trash.
Have some
Get out of my
pride,
face,
you folks. Neuroendocrine tumors are cancers that begin. Oh, good. Pop-up ad. They want you to read stuff, and then they put stuff in front of it. These cells are similar to nerve cells as they send and receive messages from the nervous system. These specialized cells work like hormones, so that's net cancer, I guess. That's it. Those are all the days.
Okay.
Have some civic pride and forget me not.
Then this has been Allison from the Netherlands, who's going to go tell Neil Gaiman thanks for making all of those comics and books and other things. And we will see you next week to review what's been happening over the weekend.
This is Roger telling you to like, subscribe, and hey, comment. Tell us we're doing a good job, or even tell us we're doing a bad job, or call us really inappropriate names so we can have your messages deleted. That's kind of fun too. All right, so that's today's news and this week's news, and we'll gavel up this week, which is November 10th, 2023, on Before Coffee.
The chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.